Welcome to episode 43 of the Mindset and Muscle podcast. I've just looked and it's been well over a month since I last did a episode, which is poor form on my part. But the thing is with any kind of creative work like this is you sort of need to be... I don't just record podcasts for the sake of recording them. I just feel like they'd be crap. It would just be waffling. And as much as I love to just talk waffle, I normally need some kind of inspiration. And actually, all of this is all going to make sense. Everything I'm about to talk about is going to be very relevant because I moved house recently. I've had friends staying. There's been a lot of change, right? And what's interesting about when things change, when there's a lot of change in your life, is normally it's like it kicks up a lot of thinking. There's a lot more to think about. There's a lot more on your mind. There's more... more logistical things. There might be more anxieties, more fears, more worries, more concerns, more just generally more stuff to think about. So first off, actually, what's inspired this? Two things have inspired this conversation. Someone actually messaged me saying they've just started listening to my podcast and really enjoying it and getting a lot from it and feel like I think similar to how they think. And they were talking about other coaches, other therapy. The issue sometimes with that is if you feel like the other person isn't going to get you. This is often why clients come to me, because they hear me and they're like, oh my God, this guy's like me. And I'm often different to what people would expect from life coaching or therapy or whatever, where, we have this idea in our head of someone we have an idea in our head and I'm not that idea, I don't think. So I assume that's a compliment, but anyway, so first off, thanks for that message. That's actually inspired me to go, do you know what? I think about recording it often. It's just there's been so much happening. Or when you then have the time to record it, you're like, well, I haven't really got anything good to say, which is always how I think anyway. I always feel like I've got nothing of relevance to say. And then when someone says, oh my God, I really enjoyed that podcast, I'm like, why? Why did you? It's just me talking. But I've been doing this like 10 years now. So I've kind of learned that for some reason the way I communicate seems to be useful. And anyway, and then the second thing that inspired me is I was having a conversation with someone, really simple conversation, but she was saying about how she doesn't like surprises, or she doesn't like almost when things happen unexpectedly, which there's a reason for that. So I'm going to follow that theme of conversation, and also it's going to tie into what I was saying a second ago. So two things here really. First thing is with me moving, right? There's all new things to think about. The brain is very, very energy hungry. It especially if you're an overthinker, which if you're here, you pretty much are, right? I feel like some people walk around with a quiet mind, or my mind is like, my thoughts, it's like my own voice in my own head. I'm sure that's the same for a lot of people. It's just jabbering away all the time. Michael Singer calls it an annoying roommate. It is, but I feel like I've got 10 annoying roommates. One of them's singing. One of them keeps just saying random catchphrases from films and stuff. The other one's complaining for some reason. One of them's just acting like a child. Two of them are arguing and neither of them are listening. So it's quite busy in there often. So then when you're moving, all of a sudden there's so much more to think about. That's why the brain likes habits. I know this is basic bitch conversation right now. This is the stuff that we know, but we forget that we know, which is why it's so important to just keep revisiting the basics sometimes. But the brain loves habits for that reason, because it doesn't want to have to think constantly. That's even like a new skill, for example, walking. We don't want to have to get up and try and remember how to walk every single day. So the brain is always looking for, how do we make this more efficient? How do we shortcut this? How do we create patterns here and then predictions and responses, which will tie in with the surprises at some stage when I get there. It wants to just shortcut stuff. Drive the same way, you can predict the traffic, quicker ways. If you've done that way enough times and there's traffic, you can kind of go other ways. You get to the gym, you use the same locker. For me, it's like my bag. I have everything in my bag and everything goes where it needs to go. Because otherwise I forget stuff. I get to the gym and I realise I forgot deodorant, and then I'm thinking I smell like a burger van, or my headphones aren't in there and now my session's ruined, or pre-workout's not in there and now I've got to raw dog it. So your brain is always looking to shortcut things to habits. Now, obviously, sometimes that doesn't work in our favour, right? But oftentimes it does. We get better, we acquire new skills, we get better at selling or communicating or teaching or whatever your job is, right? You get better and better and better because we acquire new skills and we become, it's like that journey from, conscious incompetence, to kind of conscious incompetence to, this is not coming out very well. The journey I'm taking you on, right? Where basically, let me simplify, we're shit at stuff and we don't know we're shit at stuff. Then we become aware that we're shit at stuff. Then we start to actually become good at something, but it requires us to think about it and focus on it and work at it. And at some stage, we become good at something unconsciously. We're just good at it and we forget. And someone will say, how do you do that? And you think, I don't know. I've been learning to snowboard recently. How the hell do I go from not even being able to stand up to suddenly I'm going down the main slope, not falling over? My brain at some stage has been gathering data of how to stand and posture and how to move your ankles and your knees and shift your weight and rotate your body in ways that I don't even consciously know what's happening. But my brain has gathered all this information, little cues from the coaches, applied it, and it's just become unconscious. So now I can just get on a snowboard and go down. And if you was to say, how are you doing that? I'm not really sure. It's just happened. But that happens with everything, right? I don't need to give you more examples. I'm over egging the pudding here. You get what I'm saying. So the brain loves habits. It loves to shortcut things. It loves to not have to think about things if possible, because it has to. We just couldn't process all of the information that's available to us. It's just too much, which is why obviously, things like when you buy a new car and that car's everywhere. It's because the brain has decided that that's important information. But a week prior to that, it just deleted it because it wasn't relevant. I've seen it in the dating world. If someone's been in a relationship for a long time and they never noticed that they got attention, and then they become single and they realise actually how much people look at them or how much, because it wasn't relevant information to them at first, and now it is. So the brain's looking for it. So that's what our brain's always doing, right? It's trying to decide what's important to us and delete the rest, and it distorts some as well. And you can see the implications of that, right? If you're someone that's very negative, it sees more of it. If you keep watching the news and you see all this shit, you're gonna see more of it. Or positive, that's the idea behind things like gratitude and appreciation and things like that. So you get my train of thought here, and I know you know this stuff, but it's a good reminder, right? So when you go through any form of change, unpredictability, then you'll find your head is busier. New job, sometimes a new relationship, moving, even going on holiday. For the first 2 or 3 days, people struggle to settle down sometimes. And then after the first couple of days, they go, oh, okay. Especially if you're someone that likes routine and structure. So you'll see this in action. Now, for me, what that means is, I know I'm not going to be at my best when I was moving for a bit. I know there's a lot to think about. I'm trying to buy furniture. I'm trying to clean. I'm trying to factor in the fact that now, my journey to the gym's different. And even just the smallest things, petrol, buying more petrol, where do you get it from? Like all these little things that require more thought, because you get taken by surprise. Your petrol light comes on and you go, oh, I'm kind of, X amount of miles from home. So there's just a lot of new information that needs processing until all of that starts to become habit and you start to kind of fall into new routines and new structures. And so what you'll find is the more you have on your mind, the more you become a moron. And you might find there's less capacity for other things, or you might find you feel like you are at capacity, right? Because the brain doesn't like change and it doesn't like unpredictability. This is where the surprise conversation comes in as well, because the brain likes to predict based on patterns. This works against us sometimes, but it likes to make predictions based on patterns. So it looks for patterns and then it creates predictions. That's around people with stereotypes. It's around life. Sometimes it looks to the past. This is what normally happens, so this is what's going to happen again. you'll project onto people because your ex did this. You see someone else show similar traits. Your body reacts in a similar way because it makes assumptions about this new person because they're showing similar patterns, right? Can be a good thing, can be a bad thing, because we can make incorrect assumptions. We can make, but the brain is always scanning the environment, scanning everything, trying to establish patterns so that it can make predictions. And then based on those predictions, it can respond. So it might be, this never works. I normally feel like shit. So therefore my response is I'm not even going to try. If I don't try, I don't fail. Or it might be the opposite way around, right? Last time I did this, it went really well, so let's do it. And you then do it. You can see how this kind of programming in our mind is just playing out constantly, looking for patterns to then create predictions and then respond accordingly. Again, good and bad. There's positives to it, obviously, because like I said, skill acquisition, getting good at things, learning things, there's an element to it. Keeping us safe, ultimately, keeping us away from red flags if we're looking at if we're looking in the dating world, or keeping us away from danger in some way. Because ultimately that's what the brain is looking to do, right? It's just looking to literally just looking to keep us safe, which I think is easy to forget, because the brain first and foremost wants to keep us safe, and obviously beyond that, we generally, if you're growth minded, which you probably are, which might be why you're here, then we obviously want to grow and change and do things. And you can almost have this tug of war between yourself, because on one hand, you want to kind of keep things the same and stay safe and just play it safe and don't take risks and don't put yourself out there and don't go out of your comfort zone and don't do anything different. But if you're growth minded, like me, and I assume like you, there's a part of you that then goes, boring. Like, let me do something exciting. Let me go, let me try some things. Let me get out there. I want to grow my life. I want to make more money. I want to get in shape. I want to, go on dates. I want to start a new business. And you can have this kind of tug of war, which is quite fascinating. So to come back to the surprise element, and then I'll conclude this soon. That's essentially why some people don't like surprises, right? Because a surprise is something that they don't have a pattern, a prediction and response for. So if we don't have that process, we can go into reaction. Reaction is often fight, flight, freeze. So if something takes us by surprise that we didn't predict, we didn't expect, if the brain doesn't know what to do, we go into fight, flight or freeze. So what can happen is it will go to what we normally do. If we've learned a pattern for something, there's a surprise, the brain will essentially looking at its little drawer of what do we normally do here, and if there's something there, it will run that program, right? It will say this is what we normally do. Let's just do that. This is where negative habits can come in, for example. But if we don't have a response, we go into reaction. Or sometimes the response is we get really embarrassed and we really find it awkward and we don't want to be in the situation, and we'll keep running that pattern if that's the pattern you have. It's not a pattern I have personally, but you can see how that happens, right? So sometimes it's like the reason people don't like surprises is because it catches them off guard. Like if someone says, and again, you might not relate to this specific situation, but you also might be able to transfer it to something else. But, it's like, see you Friday at 6 for a surprise. It's like, for someone that likes to be prepared, it's like, well, where is it? What am I wearing? What do I need to wear? Do I need to look good or not? Like, what do I need to bring with me? Like, is it late? Is it not? Like, am I drinking? Am I not? Do I need to be prepared to for a late night? Like, do I need to sort my day out the next day? What is it? Tell me. I actually don't like surprises. I don't know if you can kind of guess that, because I like to know. In fact, I like to be in control, really, which is another pattern of this, right? Because if we're in control, or the illusion of control, then we can predict things, right? We know what we're doing. We can think about things in advance. We can plan in advance. We know what we're doing. We know where we're going. We know what we need, and we can be prepared. Some people seem to be more okay with spontaneity, and some people not so. So those patterns there are all quite similar. The desire for control, the desire to know what's happening, to have the patterns, the predictions. It all just kind of creates safety, essentially, because then we know. What's interesting is, what are those things protecting us from? What is the brain protecting us from? You can ask yourself that question. Like, what do you think your brain is protecting you from? It might be unpreparedness. It might be embarrassment. It might be feeling on the spot. It might be feeling like you're in the spotlight and you don't want that. It might be getting things wrong. There can be a number of things there, right? But it's just interesting to notice when you start to see that the brain is ultimately always just trying to keep us safe. And most people don't like negative emotions. So it's like, not only is it trying to keep us safe, but it's trying to keep us in positive emotions on some level. Or it's not even really trying to do that, to be honest. It's trying to keep us... Let me start again. It's trying to help us avoid negative emotions. So it will do things to stop us feeling a negative emotion, and it will do things to keep us safe. So it's just quite interesting when we look at things from that perspective. However, there is a bit of an antidote to this in some ways that I found personally works. Like, if you look at the theme of this whole conversation, if we slow it right down, and if we kind of chunk up a bit, if we go upstream from this, like what we're really talking about here is kind of primitive patterns, yeah, fair enough, but also a lot of thinking. It's thought content, right? As I said, the busyness of life, moving, blah, 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 blah. It's thought content. It's thought created. Even for me to be doing this podcast, someone said something positive to me about the podcast, and then I've obviously thought, processed that through my thinking mind and thought, oh, that's really awesome, which has then given me an emotion of inspiration and desire to record this, and enthusiasm, which is then kind of, the thought has then therefore created my reality in this moment. But the more thought we have on our mind, the more we tend to be a moron, as I like to say, because it's the same kind of thing. So this points to the antidote in some ways. The antidote to all of this stuff, although easier said than done, is the space beneath the thought. I think the first thing is just to be okay, right? It's just I see a lot of people aren't very compassionate with themselves, me included. We'll be compassionate with other people. And that's actually a really interesting question when I say this to people. Like, if someone else was in my position, what would I say to them? Well, I'd say, oh, of course you've got a lot on your mind. You're moving house. There's a lot of change right now, blah, blah, blah. And then you go, hang on, but that's not what I'm saying to myself. Because what I'm saying to myself is, it's normally some kind of derogatory conversation, getting pissed off with myself. Like, we treat other people so much better than we treat ourselves, interestingly. And I see that a lot with a lot of my clients. They're just very, very self-critical and hold themselves to very high standards, and they don't give themselves any validation or compassion or understanding. They just fucking berate themselves most of the time and get pissed off at themselves. So the first thing is, obviously, sometimes we do have to, like, if you're a bit of a victim, this might be a bit different, but I don't really feel like people that listen to this tend to be that, because most victims wouldn't be listening to a podcast because it's like, woe is me, poor me, my life's shit, there's nothing I can do about it. If you're listening to me, that already means there's a part of you that says, right, I want to feel different, I want to see things different, I want to change, right? So people like us generally tend to need to be a little bit more compassionate with ourselves and say, look, yeah, I feel like shit and that's okay, or yeah, I'm stressed and that's okay, or yeah, there's a lot on my mind and that's okay, or yeah, I like routine and structure and I don't like surprises and that's okay, right? Or whatever it is. It's like, that's fine, of course. Like, when you zoom out and look at your life, you go, yeah, of course. If someone else was living my life, what would I say to them? Probably those things. Yeah, of course. Like, you got all this happening, that's cool. There's something about that slows things down, that settles things down, that acceptance. The acceptance of what is, the acceptance of, this is who I am and that's okay. This is my life right now and that's okay. This is how I feel right now and that's okay. Eckhart Tolle says, someone says to him, yeah, but what if I can't accept it? And he says, well, then just accept that you can't accept. And I so love that. It's like, I don't want to accept that I'm angry and stressed today. It's like, well, then just accept the fact that you can't accept that you're angry and stressed today. There's still a level of acceptance to that kind of, for me, makes me laugh and also makes me settle down. But that feeling of slowing down, that feeling of settling down is kind of what we're looking for, where you go, okay, yeah, there's a lot. That's all right. This is how I feel and that's okay, right? But what that points to is the space beneath thought, which for me is very much in the present moment of now. It's here now, because all those thoughts aren't here now. Thinking about what I've got to do later or tomorrow, or how much needs to be done and the furniture I still need to buy or the things that still need cleaning or my calendar. that's all thought created. It's future thought created, or sometimes it's past, right? I've been here before, and this happens, and normally this happens, and this happens, and this is going to happen. This is going to happen. This always happens. I should, I shouldn't, I could, I couldn't, I would. Like all this, it's all just thought content. So what it kind of points to is just slowing down and dropping into that space beneath thought. Dropping into, for me, when I say drop into that, when I say sort of go deeper, I don't know if I can use the words go deeper. I think dating has ruined that phrase for me. But let's just assume moving forward, when I say go deeper, I mean in a in a more kind of spiritual, more self-helpy way rather than a dirty way. So dropping deeper. That works better, dropping deeper. For me, when I say that, it's like my consciousness comes into this moment, right? Our consciousness is like a spotlight. It's like a torch where we're shining it, what is that phrase? Where focus goes, what is that phrase? I feel like I should be better at this, but clearly my brain's not working today. Something about where focus, I don't know, who knows? It'll come to me in about 4 seconds time and then I'll say it. But essentially, wherever we're shining the spotlight of our consciousness, things tend to expand. If we look at things that are negative, they tend to expand. If we look at things we're grateful for, it tends to expand. We see more of those things, right? So when we bring our consciousness into the present moment, for me, it's about finding the gaps between the words. I don't even intentionally slow my words down, by the way. That's not even something I intentionally do. It's just that's what happens. I feel like everything slows down. My words slow down, my tone drops, there's a calmness. And consciousness comes into my body as well. Like even as I'm talking to you now, I can feel the energy in my body. I can feel, which is kind of more somatic stuff, right? But I can feel my body. I can feel the warmth. It's hot right now. I can feel how I feel against the seat. Maybe you can do the same thing at the same time. You bring your consciousness into your body and into this present moment. You can even then expand your awareness in terms of what you can see and what you can hear. And for me, everything becomes a bit more vivid. Everything in my vision becomes a bit more vivid, and then I notice things that I can hear, like the rustling of trees that I hadn't noticed prior. And then I can, at the same time, simultaneously feel how my body feels. Interesting to notice if there's anything showing up for you somatically. And the space between the words, that depth beneath the thoughts. If your mind is really, 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 really busy, you'll struggle to see that. You'll struggle to see that or feel that. But you might even find, even with me slowing down and with me telling you where to look, essentially, you might even find you're slowing down in this conversation. You're slowing down as a result of me slowing down, which is very interesting. The reason I love that place and the reason I point to that place consistently is because suddenly everything feels better. It's like nothing has changed, but everything has changed. Like we don't have to carry around so much stress. We don't have to carry around so much thought. We think we do. We think we have to predict the future. We think we have to constantly try and control everything. We think we have to constantly somehow control our whole reality. We think that that's the place. We think that's the way to find peace or that's the way to find happiness, but it just makes us busier. It just makes us more mentally busy, which actually takes us away from this feeling. And sometimes you just can't slow down. You try your best. You go for a walk, you sit in your hammock, you read a book, you listen to me, you listen to someone else. Sometimes it's like you can't quite get back to that place, even though you know where to look. At least you know where to look. Sometimes you can get closer to it. And sometimes you'll find you just drop into it. It can be listening to me. It can be any number of things. Whatever those portals into stillness are for you. And you just get there. And you go, ah. And the word, I'm always like a joke with my friend. I'm like, I'm back. It's like I'm back again. I'm home again. And I can just feel the difference. There's such a different feeling mentally, emotionally, physically. My whole body feels different. My whole experience feels different. And you will have your own portals into that space. But I think the main thing here is knowing where to look. And it's that simple. And how this kind of applies to things like surprises or being unprepared, or, I mean, again, you can just consciously say, I like to make conscious decisions around my life, and there's a real beauty to that. I personally am the same. Does that sentence even make sense? I am the same. However, I've learned now to, in any moments of stress or any moments of, things I don't like or whatever, is just my go-to pattern now is to get really, really present. Really, really present. Normally there's an in-breath, which people don't tend to notice. I just get really, really present with the situation, and then I'm good. I'm absolutely good. Because there's a real power of the present moment. There's a real power of our consciousness in the present moment. There's a real wisdom and an intuition when you get present. When you empty your mind of what you think and your fears and your worries, and you learn to just get super present, and you're just a blank slate in that moment. Anyway, that's 26 minutes of me waffling. I would say I'll do this regularly, but I'd be lying to you. I'll do my best, and when the inspiration hits. But if you want to send me, feedback on, the podcast and what you got from it and stuff, that inspiration actually really does help me, because it inspires me. It's not like it's validation. It's like when I hear, because there might be something you say and I go, oh my God, I want to record a podcast on that. That's where I get my inspiration from other people, conversations, observations. So anyway, if you haven't liked it, like it. If you're on Apple, leave a review, because that's cool too. Share it if you fancy it. Message me if you got something from it. And I appreciate you being here. I'll speak to you soon.